Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and to share some information with you. As Tonya mentioned, I'm a senior director at the Environmental Working Group, and hopefully by the end of my presentation, you'll have some new or maybe not new healthy living tips to take with you, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end. So to get started, I wanted to be sure that everyone knew what the Environmental Working Group is. We're commonly known as EWG, so you'll oftentimes see that instead of our full name. So we're a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to empowering consumers to live healthier lives in healthier environments. Our headquarters are based in Washington, D.C., and that's where I'm presenting to you from today. But we also have offices in the Midwest and also out in California in the Bay Area. And I wanted to provide a little bit of background about how we accomplish our mission. So we are a nonprofit, but we have several different avenues that we focus on. But primarily our main goal is to empower consumers to learn more about the products they use, the things they bring into their home, supported by research. So we have a team of scientists. I'm on our science team. There's about 12 or so of us that deep dive into lots of different types of research on a daily basis. But then we also have a team that focuses more on advocacy and government affairs. And then we also have some community outreach. So we have a wide variety of teams on our greater EWG team, but really we're trying to move the market and inform consumers through research and education. And there are many issues that EWG focuses on. I primarily am going to be speaking with you today about personal care products and consumer products. So those are things that you can purchase in a store, but there are several experts on our team that focus more on food and water, farming and agriculture. Our Midwest team has been working a lot in that space. Chemical exposure of all varieties, family health. We like to really focus on children's health. Adolescence and development is a really key timing. So we want to make sure that we have the whole family covered in our research and not just adults. And then we also focus on some regional issues out west in California and in the Midwest as well. But the main portion of my presentation is going to be talking about Skin Deep. So some of you may have already visited Skin Deep. If not, I'm going to give you a brief background, talk a little bit about how we come up with Skin Deep, the scores behind Skin Deep, some additional information, and then follow up with some tips and information that I've learned along the way at the end. So Skin Deep is our cosmetics database. We review, I think it's over 70,000 at this point, products you can find in our Skin Deep database. It's technically a cosmetics database, but cosmetics is a very broad term. That includes anything from toothpaste to lotion to beard creams to baby bubble bath. It's a wide variety. It's not just makeup. We also include sun and SPF products. So your sunscreens, your daily moisturizers with SPF. And it's a database where you can look up and find products. It's hopefully an easy to use tool. It's supposed to be an educational tool for consumers to learn more about the products they use. We review a wide variety of products. We are expanding the places where you're getting information from. That is some feedback we've heard, is that not everyone can find the products they use. And we want everyone in the US to be able to find the products they use on a regular basis. So we are trying to find information and products that are not necessarily just at the big box stores or pharmacies, but we're trying to get some of those smaller boutique stores, some of the more high-end stores, so a wide variety, everywhere from a dollar store to the spa. So we try and have a wide range of products, product types, but there are some areas that we can improve upon, and we are actively trying to make the database more robust on the product types. In addition to the online website, we also have an app. It's called the Healthy Living app, where you can, it's the same information that's found in Skin Deep. Plus we have a few other databases that focus on different product types. So we have a guide to healthy cleaning, which is cleaning products. And we also have something called food scores, which I'll touch on these a bit more later. But I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that we have not only a website, but if you're on the go, on your phone, we have an app. It makes it really easy to use because we have a scan feature. So if you're in the store and want to quickly learn about a product, you can use the scan feature, scan the barcode on the back of a product. If by chance that product is not yet in our database, we do now have the option where you can submit that for our team to review, which is really great. And I highly encourage people to use that. You just take a few pictures of the image. None of your information is required. We just need the image and the UPC so that our team can go out and do the research and add that product to Skin Deep so that hopefully in the future you would be able to find that when you scan the product. But I think the most frequently asked question that I get is, I don't understand the Skin Deep scores, which we are trying to make it as clear as possible. So I appreciate if anyone has feedback at a later point. I'm happy to hear it. But right now, Skin Deep is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, and we also color code it. So the lower the number, the lower the health hazard score. So typically green is what we recommend. Yellow is moderate hazard, so maybe in moderation. And the high end, the reds, 10s, 8, 9, 10s, there is data that supports that there are high health hazards associated with that product or ingredient. And so when we are reviewing products, we look at the information that's on a product label. So primarily we're looking at that ingredient list. So what are the ingredients that are listed on the product? And then myself and a team of scientists, we review each of those ingredients within the product and come up with an overall score. And that's where it falls from 1 to 10. But it gets a little complicated. But there are several factors we look at when we are determining that overall score. Some factors and health impacts and endpoints get a greater weight in that overall score. So things that we find and take more weight into consideration are things like cancer. If there is data out there from an authoritative body, let's say the European Union or the FDA or IARC, the International, I'm going to forget the exact acronym name, but if there's out there data that directly shows that an ingredient is a known human carcinogen, that's going to get a very substantial weight to that score. Whereas there's some other categories that have a lesser impact, like ecotoxicology, how that ingredient may impact the environment. We primarily are a human public health organization. So that is what we review with the most weight, is how it impacts humans and human health. But we do also take into consideration with lesser weight how it impacts the environment, how some of these products or ingredients interact, if they're used in your shower, you're washing them down the drain. Are there concerns about certain ingredients when they get into the aquatic environment? Do they impact fish and other wildlife in the water? Are there contamination concerns? So things of that nature. We like to pride ourselves on transparency. And so all of our methodology for how we review products is publicly available. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of every single page of our website. So all of this information is out there if people have further questions. But this is a quick summary of how we review products. And so there's typically 2 scores. One will be a numeric score. What's the overall health hazard based on the ingredients found within a product? If there's several known carcinogens, it's likely going to fall in the higher, the 7 to 10 high health hazard. But if there's not data out there that shows it's associated with some really severe health impacts, it will be lower. But one thing we do also include is the data availability score, which is the none, limited, fair, good, robust, because we think it's really important for consumers to know if a product receives a score, if that's because there's data showing that the ingredient may be safe or has been tested to be safe or shown as safe, or if there's no data out there. There are so many ingredients that are being used in products, and we try and keep up to date with all the available science, but there aren't publicly available data out there for every single ingredient that's in products right now on the market. And so we think it's really important for consumers to know that if this product scores a 2, but there may be very limited data, so only maybe 1 or 2 studies, whereas there's some ingredients that have been robustly tested because they've been used for many, many years. There's lots of scientific data out there, whether that's the academic peer-reviewed studies or from industry studies, or maybe from a governmental organization, wherever the data is coming from. So typically we try and find as many studies as possible, but it will be listed for every product and every ingredient, how much data we found. And at the bottom, we'll include all of our data points. So if ever anyone has questions on where we're getting the information from, it's publicly listed in our Skin Deep database. And I think this was one of our questions in the pre-questionnaire poll. I know when I first started getting into the personal care space, I was primarily focused on the science, the chemistry behind it, how cosmetic formulations are made. And I wasn't that much in the policy space until I started working at EWG, since we have both advocacy and consumer education here. So I was not aware that the last law passed that regulates cosmetics and personal care products was in 1938. So any of you that guessed 1938, you were correct. But I thought that was shocking that it's been many, many years. Is that almost 80 years since there's last been updates to that law? I know there's been lots of attempts to change that in the recent years, and possibly will have future regulation, but it was news to me, and I thought that that's an interesting tidbit that a lot of people don't know, and wanted to be sure that I shared that, mainly because there's very few chemicals or ingredients banned in the US. I think there's about 11 or 12. Some of them are chemical groups, so it's slightly, the number can be a bit variable. But there's several other countries in the world that have a lot more ingredients that are banned. And just because we only have 11 doesn't mean that some of these banned ones are being used on a regular basis, or you'll find it frequently in products, but companies can, if they wanted to, use just about any ingredient that they want in products. So I wanted to be sure I touched on that. Okay, average exposures. So I'm gonna pivot away from Skin Deep and start to kind of talk about the science and some of the information we found in reviewing products for many years. Skin Deep was started in 2004. So almost over 15 years now that EWG has been working in the cosmetic space and reviewing products and ingredients in them. And we've partnered with different institutions and done studies, and we've found that the average American adult uses between 6 and 12 cosmetic products a day. So like I said, that could be toothpaste, deodorant, shampoos, conditioners. And every day people are exposed to hundreds of unique chemicals in these cosmetic products. Sometimes the chemicals that are used aren't things that would be the best for your body, but sometimes they are perfectly okay. And so it's something that we're trying to renew and look at and see really what are the most commonly used ingredients that people are exposed to every day, and making sure that we have that available for consumers to learn more about. But 3 specific ingredients we focused on, I think, is about 10 years ago, are parabens, phthalates, and triclosan. So these were ingredients that came up. CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is frequently collecting data, biomonitoring studies. So they're looking at the blood and urine of Americans. And this came up, and that's actually how Skin Deep initially got started. One of the toxicologists we had on staff at the time was reviewing these CDC biomonitoring studies and noticing that a lot of cosmetic ingredients were showing up in fairly high concentrations that they thought were high at the time in blood and urine of humans, in Americans specifically. And they thought, maybe there's a way that we can make this information accessible to the public, and it may be good for people to know what's in the products they use. Because sometimes ingredient labels can be confusing, and you shouldn't have to have a degree in science to be able to know what potential health harms may be coming with a product. So that's how Skin Deep first got started. And we have a team that's really been focusing on endocrine disruptors and different chemicals that have been shown to have links or associations with hormone disruption. So parabens, phthalates, and triclosan were 3 that we looked at pretty closely. Phthalates and parabens are a large group of chemicals. There's not just one, there's multiple types. And I would say it's a combination of consumer voice, but also the science out there that several of these ingredients are being phased out. We're not seeing these as often in cosmetic products on store shelves presently, as we saw in the past. But there's studies out there on both sides saying that these ingredients are safe, and then there's some that show that they are linked to severe health impacts. And so one study that we have looked at many, many times, and you may have heard of this in the past at a past Salon conversation, but it was a study that was looking at teen girls and their product usage. So they surveyed about 100 girls, and they had them switch to products that scored green in our Skin Deep database, which are products that are associated, we have data that are associated with low health hazards. And they surveyed the urine of these teen girls before and then after they made the switch. And within 3 days, certain types of phthalates decreased by 27%. So the concentration found in their urine decreased by about 27%. Triclosan dropped by 36% and parabens by 45%. And so the products they were used were free of phthalates, free of triclosan, and free of parabens. And so I thought this study is really impactful because it shows that what you use on a daily basis really can impact the concentration of these ingredients that are found in your body, and that making changes, 3 days time is not that long of a time to make a switch. So it's impactful. And this is a study that I'm hoping that will be replicated in the future so we can take a closer look. But like I said, this was a study that was an academic study that we helped them make sure and they can navigate the Skin Deep database and understand how we score different products. And this is something that my team recently pulled together. They were looking at specifically propylparaben. So those of you who are not familiar, which is okay because I've been in this space for so long, I sometimes forget. Parabens are typically used in cosmetic products as a preservative. So anytime that you're using water in a cosmetic formulation, you want to have a preservative. We think preservatives are very important. If not, you have water that's not preserved, and there's chances for microbial growth, fungus, mold, and that's not something that anyone wants in their products, especially if you're using products around your eyes or on your mouth. You don't want to be worried about getting sick from different microbes or putting mold around your eyes. So we definitely think preservatives are necessary in products, especially water-based products. But we think that there are safer options out there. And parabens are a chemical class that we've seen the consumer voice be really powerful. A lot of consumers have been opting to choose paraben-free products. Some companies are manufacturing specifically to this, and you'll see it on products, paraben-free, sulfate-free. There's some other free ofs that are very popular right now. But we've seen the reduction of propylparaben being used in formulations, and we're seeing that directly correlated to the propylparaben levels in Americans when they're testing their blood and urine levels. So there's definitely a reduction, which we think is a great thing, and hope that we'll continue to have innovation in the formulation space around preservation. Like I said, I think it's necessary, but not every type of preservative is necessarily the best fit, we think. Okay. And so another analysis that we did, which was back in about 2016, was looking at ingredients in products marketed to Black women. And we were specifically looking at products marketed to Black women, not the greater Black community, because that was our focus at the time. But this year, so it'll probably come out next year, we are taking a renewed look, and we're looking at the full community. So a broader range of product types. We are going to look at all genders and see if there's been a change. I'm hoping that since 2016, there have been changes in the products available, but I know that there isn't as big of a change as I would probably like. But back in 2016, when we were looking at the data, we reviewed, I think it was just over 1,000 products, and found that only 1/4 of those products that we looked at scored green on Skin Deep. So those are ones that we considered were made with safer ingredients. So that means that 3/4 of the products were not scoring green. Typically they were yellow, some of them were red. The products we looked at had potential risks linked to things like cancer, hormone disruption, inhalation concerns, which is a really, really big concern for us. And we have a separate report about that, especially for salon workers. So some of the hair dyes, the hair blowouts, the hair treatments, it's concerned for the users who are putting that on their hair themselves, but also salon products. And so we've partnered with a few other organizations like Black Women for Wellness, We Act, and Women's Voices for the Earth. And I know that they have all done research and been advocates in the space for much longer than EWG has been. And so we're trying to find ways to continue to get the messaging out there that there are these concerns with certain product types. Allergies and skin sensitization was another thing that we found both in the consumer goods, but also in the salon space. We typically focus on consumer products, so things that any person can purchase on a store shelf. Unfortunately, with salon products, there's slightly different regulation and there may not always be ingredients publicly listed. And so that's what our Skin Deep database is based on. And if we don't have that information, we cannot review the products. And so salon products you won't find in our Skin Deep database right now. But we are hoping, and our government affairs team has worked in advocacy for requiring ingredient labeling on the salon products, because we think that everyone should be able to know, if they want to know, what's in the products they're using, especially in their workplace. So this is an analysis that really, we were a bit shocked at what we found, and I'm really hoping that when we do this renewed look this year, that we're able to find that there's been some changes in the marketplace, because at EWG, I can speak for myself, I want to make sure that everyone everywhere in the US has access to safer personal care products. And if there aren't the options in the marketplace yet, what can we do as an organization to get this message out to help move the marketplace? So it's something that we're taking a renewed look at this year. Okay, so on to tips. So on our website, we have several tip sheets, not just for personal care products, but I'm going to focus on personal care products for right this moment. But we have lots of easy to use tip sheets that hopefully get the point across in a fairly concise way for anybody. We have some of these tip sheets are being translated into Spanish, and they're meant for kind of on the go, so you don't have to remember everything from this presentation. It's a lot of information, but hopefully you'll be able to review some of our tip sheets if you're ever on the go or trying to find new products or just want to learn more about cosmetic product space and industry. So two things I thought were important from the tip sheet is fragrance, which I'm pretty sure was discussed in a previous salon conversation. But for those of you that were not in attendance, fragrance is often a vague term that you'll find in an ingredient list. It may just say fragrance, or it may say parfum or aroma. And there's a bit of a loophole in the federal regulations for ingredient listings. And so the term fragrance may be used because it can be considered a trade secret. And so what can be used in that term fragrance is almost 4,000 ingredients. Some of them have them linked to health concerns, some of them have not. Just because there's the term fragrance on a product label doesn't guarantee that everything in that mixture is not safe. I want to make that clear, but it does mean that there may not be transparency in what is actually in that product if there is a big term fragrance on the label. And then the other one is formaldehyde releasers. So we have a list in our tip sheets of common formaldehyde releasers. And those are ingredients that either slowly release formaldehyde as they break down in the formulation due to a chemical reaction, or they might slowly form formaldehyde. But formaldehyde is a known human carcinogen. And so we at EWG think that formaldehyde releasers, which are typically used as a preservative, so commonly found in bath products, shampoos, conditioners, other products with water in them, are not the best option. We think that there are other preservatives out there that are a better option than using an ingredient that eventually forms or releases formaldehyde into the product. Being a known human carcinogen is a concern in and of itself, but also there are irritation concerns, skin sensitization concerns, inhalation concerns. So we have several concerns with many of the formaldehyde releasers, and they're usually really big, long names. And so I don't want to go over all of that in detail, but did want to point out that we have a list of what we think are the highest health concern formaldehyde releasers in our tip sheet on our website, which can be downloaded, taken on the go, should you ever want to review that when you're reviewing your products. So I think a lot of that was a bit heavy, so I'm trying to make this portion a little bit more fun and uplifting. So what can you do? What can you do to maybe avoid these potentially harmful ingredients? So our first suggestion is to read the label to find out what's in the products you use. And I totally understand that reading every single label can be a lot. I don't always have the time to read every single label every time I'm buying something. But if you have the time and the ability, use resources. Skin Deep is one example, but there are other resources out there to help you navigate the personal care products and other consumer goods space to kind of find out what are you using? Are there any ingredients linked to health harms that are commonly being used? Are there swaps that can be made? But really focusing on making small changes. I find that what is most sustainable is something that you want to make the change of and starting small. So instead of, if you go and look up your daily routine, and let's just say that all of them score red in Skin Deep, I wouldn't suggest immediately throwing away everything in your cabinet at once. I would say start by making small changes. So start with one product. When it runs out, maybe swapping it out for something that's green, and try and go for something that's green or yellow in the future. Making those small chemical exposure. And it's really important to focus on products that you use on the greatest amount on your body. So that's another place to make a small change. If you just use a small amount of an eye cream versus a body wash that you're using every single day, more frequently than an under eye cream or an under eye product, that will likely have a bigger impact in your overall chemical exposure. So make small changes, start with products that are used on a large amount of your body or products that are used in a daily routine. If you only use a lip gloss or a lip balm or a lipstick once a month, I know with COVID, some people's general daily routines have switched up. And so focus on your current routine and find the product that you use most often, and not something that you maybe only use occasionally or for special occasions. So focus on small changes. And then I also wanted to highlight, we have several other healthy living guides. Like I said, we have a team of researchers that just looks at tap water, and they are experts in tap water and knowing about that. We have a database where you can search by your zip code, and it pulls up information from your local water utility and the different findings that that water utility pulls up in their testing. We have a guide to cleaning products. I know this past year, I've learned a lot more about cleaning products than I ever did trying to find hand sanitizers and disinfectants. And so I've been relying on our cleaning team a lot to inform me about what to look for. We have information about meat and produce, bug repellents, sunscreens. So lots of healthy living guides, lots of healthy living tips. So hopefully our organization can help inform you and give you some healthy living tips or give you other resources to help you do your research. And that is pretty much the end of my presentation.